So, welcome back to episode 11 of the Business Builders Podcast. Very thrilled to welcome our friend and real estate coach, Andy Nazaroff, all the way from California. We've been coaching with Andy for maybe 3 years or so, maybe longer, 3 to 4 years, I think. We've been part of the Tom Ferry organization, for maybe 7 years. We've been, learning from Andy for several years now. Andy has a lot of background in leading brokerages and also just coaching other leaders. So, Andy, you want to tell us a little bit about your background so they can connect with you?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Dusty, and good afternoon to you. It's still morning time for me here in California, but I've been in the real estate business since I was a kid. I grew up in mom and pop real estate, and I want to say, I think I was around 8 or 10 years old when they got into the real estate business. So I just grew up around it, but didn't officially get licensed into it until about 25 years ago. And I was an agent first. I, cut my teeth in mom and pop office for a couple of years until, it was time for me to branch off and do my own thing. And eventually found my love and passion for leadership. And, I had this vision that I can help a buyer or seller in a transaction once every 6 or 7 years, right? In terms of the frequency of how often they might be making a move. But when I got to helping agents, you were actively involved in them 6 to 7 times a month, for that matter, let alone maybe a year. You were multiple intrinsic reward opportunities to engage with them and help them in their business and develop them. And just the love for seeing somebody go from how do I do this to figuring it out to having their first closed transaction. I don't want to say it maybe cheesy, I was hooked, but I just found my joy and this is what I love to do. And that was probably around 2005. That's in terms of that light bulb. I want to do this. In 2006, I had this brilliant idea to start my own company, my own office. In 2006, that was the idea. In 2007, it launched, recruited 20 agents to the office right away, really quickly. And by September of 2007, you remember, if you were around in the real estate space, everything just slowed up. And I was like, this was the stupidest idea I could have ever made. My savings is going into this. My family is stressed out. I had 3 little kids. The daughter was a baby still, and she was born in 2007. And so just regretting it and really thinking, gosh, what am I going to do? And a total godsend, the largest broker in our market, a company of at the time, about 400 agents, reached out to me, and we had coffee and connected. And then a month later, here it is, the market's crashing. And he said, I really recognize what you're doing in the area of recruiting and training, and I would love for you to come and do it for us. And I was like, you mean I could actually get paid? That'd be great. I'll get into my savings. That'd be awesome. And he allowed me to sell and recruit and train and coach the agents inside this company. And I started there in January of 2008. And in the first 2 years, the market headwinds were heavy and people were leaving the industry as fast as they might be considering joining it. And it wasn't just the real estate economy, right? It was the economy in general in 2008. It was awful. And so we had people losing their jobs considering getting into real estate, and we had people in real estate saying, I'm out of here, I can't sell anything. But in 2008 to 2010, we had a net gain of 25 agents to the company from 125 agent recruit. I recruited 125 agents to this company, but because the people were exiting, there was just as many leaving. We still grew by 25 agents over the course of that 2 years, which in 2010, in hindsight, in 2010, it was like, that's what allowed us to survive. If we weren't recruiting like that, we would have had to shut our doors. And I mean, that same period of time, We stopped newspaper advertising. We were spending nearly $1 million a month in newspaper advertising. It was a stupid amount of money that was going out from a big, big brokerage.
Right.
We were spending money on billboards, and all that traditional advertising stopped. And the truth is, by the end of 2010, we right-sized it. We grew the company a little bit, and there was an opportunity for me to open up a branch. They said, "Good job on the recruiting. You want to do a branch?" And I said, "Absolutely." And recruit to myself, you mean, instead of these 11 other managers that might be a little longer in the tooth and stodgy in their ways and traditional in the way that they train and develop agents. Oh, here's your desk, here's your phone. Let me know if you have any questions.
Right.
And opening up my branch really shaped a lot of who I am as a coach today, because I got to recruit to myself. I got to say, hey, when you join, this is what you get. And be a part of the delivery of that promise versus recruiting to a manager who didn't necessarily deliver on the things that we talked about in a recruiting appointment and let us down.
Right.
Not all of them, but oftentimes it happened. It was so much easier to recruit to myself and grow. And in a 2-year period of time, I added 65 agents to a branch, 1,250 square foot space, Dusty. And it was a brick and mortar and a flex space. So it was a 2011. You could work from home. They were like, well, how do you do that? And Google had this thing called Hangouts, and I did video over YouTube and Hangouts because there wasn't anything like Zoom back then. And it sounds like old, right? But it was only 2011.
Right.
But we grew that office around that principle that you can come in and use the office as a touchdown, because the truth is most agents are hardly ever in the office. Most offices, real estate offices today, you could shoot a cannon through them on any given day and not get anybody, because there's only a couple of agents in 100,000 square feet. And we just grew this smart, 1,250 square feet. I called it the flex office. And for that reason, you could be flexible to be there or not. And the irony is, here we are 14 years later, and it's common practice that people do that. And yet most real estate offices are very traditional, still in the way that they approach desk to agent to so on.
Right.
But I grew that. And then in 2013, the company was acquired by Berkshire Hathaway. And that's when I found out that I was part of the succession plan. And I succeeded the CEO as the CEO thereafter, and did that all the way until July of 2019. And really in June of 2017, I got my appetite whet for coaching in the Tom Ferry organization, and just agreed to coach a couple of brokers and team leaders because I had this full-time gig as a CEO. But in July of 2019, I said, I really enjoy this coaching thing. It's going to allow me to be more entrepreneurial and not work for a Fortune 500 company, and be able to just be myself again. And here I am 5 years later and still doing the same thing.
So looking back at that kind of original push where you recruited 125 and retained 25, do you think those same tactics work today, or is there something you do differently today?
Well, that's a good question, Dusty. I don't think I had a magic shiny penny when I was, it wasn't like it was, you hear people, oh, go buy this application or this software and it'll help you recruit more agents. I was really old school. And I'm an advocate of relationship and sitting down with somebody and having a conversation. Recruiting to me is like figuring out, what are the problems that the agent's facing? How can aligning with us solve those problems? And if we can, let's figure out a way to work together.
Right.
And if you have enough of those face-to-face relationship conversations, you're going to find a lot of success in recruiting. There's a lot of, do this email, do this marketing thing. And I'm like, and no different, by the way, right? To the way that you train your agents and help them sell. If they would just have enough conversations and get belly to belly with enough potential customers, opportunities, not leads, opportunities, then you're going to find they've got a problem. They want to buy a house or they need to sell their house, and we can find a way to do it for them. Right. It's no different inside the recruiting vertical.
So you hear the word culture a lot. Sometimes I think that might be slightly overused, but I certainly know the importance of it. Was that something you were thinking about at that time, or is that kind of a new wave of catchphrases, in the workplace?
Well, so when I was the recruiter for the company in 2008 to 2010, I didn't think about culture.
Hmm.
Because, candidly, it was do or die time. It was we needed to recruit. We needed to grow. It was dire straits financially. It was not healthy. And when I had my own office, opportunity to build my branch, that's when I thought about culture. And I recruited to it, but I would say to you this, the word culture, it's not a new thing. It's just overused.
Yeah.
The word culture is, you got to identify it. What does your culture stand for? And when you can say, these are the values that we're about, or these are the differentiators that we're about, your culture starts to permeate. The challenge is you and I can talk about the culture that we have,
Hmm.
but the agent candidate that you're talking to, I don't want to say everybody does this, but they have this little filter of BS until they hear about it and experience it from your agents.
Right. Yeah, I've kind of always thought about it in the way, what are your agents and employees saying about what it's like to work there when they're not around you? That's probably a good indication of the true culture of your workplace.
And especially when they can pick up the phone and say, hey, Joe, can you tell me what it's like to work for Dusty and Heather? And
Right.
Joe hasn't been teed up by you guys to have the call. It's
Right.
totally unfiltered. And when that happens, that's where I think you can really get through the BS filter and have some true social proof.
Right. I completely agree. So let's say you're starting a new brokerage, um, as we are doing. Um, like what do you think some of the most important first things that you do? And I'm not talking administration wise, but what would you do immediately?
Yeah. So obviously you got to get the word out and you need to saturate the market about your story. What did you do? Why did you do it? What problem are you trying to solve by opening up your own brokerage? Because I know you and Heather well enough to know that you aren't going to go out there and say, hey, we're opening up our own brokerage because we're trying to save 4% on commission or whatever the number might be, right? We're opening up because we want to be our own boss. No, you actually have identified an opportunity
Right.
and there's a problem that you guys are trying to solve in doing it. And so the first thing I'd be doing is telling my story as many people and in as many channels as possible. It's not just a press release. And the other thing, Dusty, is it's not just a one-day event.
Right.
You're probably going to spend the first 18 months telling that story over and over and over. I think about my former boss, and Gino Buffari, and he had a company in the Silicon Valley area called Intero. And Intero was when they were young, when they were new, the fastest organic growing brokerage in the country. And Dusty, they grew like some crazy number, like 1,000 agents in a year or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, and I'm not going to over exaggerate it but I'm friends with those guys, and I was around those guys when they were doing it. And here I was in my market while they were doing it in their market. They were a couple years ahead of us, but they did it by empowering their managers and all of their ownership team to talk to agents every day. They measured it, they measured it, they measured it. They told their story. And
Right.
agents resonated with their story and they joined them in droves.
Hmm.
I don't think there's much secret sauce there, is there?
No, it just sounds like conversation and being genuine, and authentic with the people, that you're talking to.
I'll say it this way, Dusty. You know the practical things about having a building, about having signage, about making sure the lights are on. And you could translate everything that I just said into any business in any retail industry, right? You can put a hardware store in that same vein. You can put a salon in that same vein. People that have retail customers, right? Well, if they don't get out there and tell their story in as many channels and as many places as possible, there's nobody coming in the door.
Right.
And I think that challenge that most real estate brokers make is they think, well, because I bought the brand, because I have the building, because I have the lights on, people will join me. The people that'll join you for those reasons are not necessarily going to help you grow as fast as you want to grow. You might get a couple of people here and there, but nowhere near the scale. And nowhere near shaping the culture that you want by talking to people about your story.
So if you were starting a new brokerage today, and what you know about the current environment, because things have changed since you were leading. I mean, maybe not so much since 2017, 19, but definitely since 2011, I would think. What avatar of agent would you be trying to recruit in the beginning?
That's a good question. I don't think so I'm very connected to the industry, even though I'm not leading a brokerage anymore. I like to say that I have this blessing of being able to have my thumb on the pulse of the market in multiple markets, because I'm in probably 20 different geographies that I'm working with amazing people like you guys. Very, very obviously familiar with the changes in contracts and the practices. I wouldn't be training and coaching on the subject if I wasn't, right?
Right.
But when it comes to the present market environment, and I was really trying to adapt. I think the opportunity is with somebody that is hungry, somebody that is humble and smart. And there are multiple avatars that fit those values. There's the person that's a seasoned agent that just wants to be around. Like I recruited people that were well-established 30-plus year veterans in their career, but they wanted to join this trendy flex office because they wanted to be around the youth. They wanted to learn from them. Come on over. And in that case, I said, we really want to make sure that you are moral, that you're ethical, and you do things legally. And if you'll follow those three things, we're a great spot for you to fit. It kind of gave the ability to be very diverse as a company. It gave the ability to be not just this pigeonhole avatar, but to say we can be as many things to different, people types, personality types, and even backgrounds, because every one of those agents has a tribe that they're trying to attract as customers. So if I really stuck to this avatar, then I'm only going to attract a small group of customers of theirs. So very different from launching a team, very different from where you're going to generate the leads and put them on a CRM and have a standard of practice and control the client experience and deliver at a 5-star level experience every time. Whereas you're attracting independent agents, you can't have as much of a tight grip on that avatar. You need to have more of a tight grip to your values, particularly your integrity and commitment to doing things more legally and ethically right.
That's good. That's a good way to look at it. So anything that you would do differently, looking back at your time with Berkshire before?
What I would do differently.
Or biggest lesson, something like that.
The biggest lesson I think was in the last couple of years, and it was probably the reason why it was easy to resign, is that I often didn't involve my leadership team in the decision reasonings. Like slow down to allow them to understand the process and be a part of the thinking and that whole collective. I mean, I was young in terms of maturity, even though, I think I was the same age as you are today in that season, Dusty. And it was that, I'm a driver and go really fast and paying enough attention to getting everybody a part of the decision that then therefore they trust the decision more. And when the decision is made, they're a part of the outcome versus, wait, I'm not sure why we did that. I think it was this, but what about that? And then you end up having to manage the wake of destruction behind you. And the time that it takes to do that is so much more time consuming than it would have been if I slowed down in the front end and explained the reasoning, got the buy-in, got the trust, and then made the decision.
Yeah, I have to see how that would really increase buy-in. I think that's probably a weakness of mine as well. But thankfully, I have a yin to my yang, and Heather.
Oh, you do definitely have somebody that will slow down turbo
to help with that, So coaching a ton of leaders every day in your schedule, what are some common mistakes that you see today? Really leaning on the broker side. I know you coach a lot of team leaders, but
Yeah, I do
that you
both, by the way.
see as you're coaching these leaders daily, is there anything you see as common, as just like a common misstep that maybe someone like me could avoid and learn from as they lead a brokerage?
So, okay, I got it. And I got the line. Let's talk about Dusty. Let's just start calling them out by names, and we could talk about every client's mistake. Just spell by name. Just kidding.
Better not.
I coached this guy named Dusty. Let's talk about, I'm just,
Well, I mean, if you don't have missteps, then you don't need coaching, right?
you have great lessons too, by the way, in your missteps. You've learned a lot and grown a lot.
That's
So I would say that when a leader gets to, so I had this aha recently where I said there's really three types of leaders. There's a leader in a real estate company. There's a leader producer, there's a leader employee, and there's a leader owner. And every person that gets into leadership wants to be leader owner. But the truth is, in real estate, they were producing before they got into that place. And they probably still need to produce to be able to pay the bills and cover expenses and enjoy their quality of life.
mm-hmm.
But that very thing, that very act, keeps them from being a true leader owner. Or I see leaders that are leader producers and leader employees, and they struggle to delegate and they struggle to hire the right people, and they therefore still need to be in production to keep the lights on and enjoy their quality of life, and they're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore they don't get to that place of leader owner. And behind all of it is a missed opportunity that I think comes as a result of the leader. There's many, many reasons why. It's the very reason why I think coaching is so necessary, is because there's not one answer to the process to become that true leader owner, where you're working on your business when you're there and you're able to detach from it and it still runs, and your equation of time and money is not one-to-one. You can actually have time on your hands and the money is still being made because you put things in place and the right people in place.
Right.
But at its core, I think the common denominator issue is a leader has stopped being the best salesperson in the company. You see, you've got to sell your vision to your staff. You got to sell your vision to your agents. You got to sell your vision to the potential agents that are going to join you, the recruits. You constantly have to be, and I know selling sounds so like a negative thing these days. And it's not,
Right.
I'm not trying to say you have to be going to be like a slick snake oil salesperson. I mean, you have to be able to present your ideas, your reasonings, what you're thinking, your growth in a selling way. And if you haven't figured that out, or you stop doing it,
Right.
you're never going to become that leader owner.
Yeah, I can see that. And it's really selling the vision, and getting buy-in there.
All the time to all the people, and really having a compelling sales pitch.
You can see brokerages across the country, I can in my market, that are clearly succeeding, and then you see some that are clearly failing. Do you see a commonality? Like what do you like? Is there something that the succeeding brokerages are doing that you can kind of point out or identify?
Well, I have this company that I coach that in June to today, they've had more than the 60% growth. And I'm talking about, they were at 110 and now they're approaching 300 agents. And I'm watching them go, wow, that is massive, almost to a degree of like, be careful, you don't grow too fast. You got to be able to support it with staff. But the success of that growth and their production has been because the leader is all in on telling his story. Every day he's got appointments to talk to people, and every day people are trying to get on his schedule to talk to him. So there's something happening very contagious. And it's not any one of those sexy cloud-based brokerages with multi-level revenue streams. It is a very vanilla, very traditional compensation model. It's their growth, it's their people, it's their culture that has just been, wow, this is awesome.
Do you think it's the person, or is it more like So, I mean, that I've seen that before too. It's almost like there gets this momentum, and you've got to keep flaming it, is what it looks like from the outside. But I mean, whenever that company or person began that journey, what were they doing? Like, how did they start that excitement?
Well, just like you, they didn't start at zero. Just like you, they had a productive team. And the biggest challenge, I think the reason why most startup brokerages fail is they start at zero. And that phase one, that startup mode is like scratching and clawing up the side of a cliff. We think, oh, I just got to go up that mountain. It's more like a cliff with nothing to grab onto.
All right.
And the second phase, what you're stepping into, your phase of growth has momentum. It isn't, yes, it's in startup mode, but you still have a team that's selling and it's systems and infrastructure, so it's a lot easier to take that scale. And that's what this particular person did. They had 50 to 60 agents on a team, a mega team, and they had online leads and CRM and other production. And by the way, the leader was hardly in production themselves, but they had an amazing trainer and those kinds of things that just scaled it right up. So
you've heard the term, brokerage is otherwise termed broke, broke or for brokerage. I can't remember how you exactly say it. Why do you think that that is the thought or the mindset behind a brokerage? Or what are some keys to profitability to where that might not be the case?
Well, I am a huge proponent to speak to broker owners from my experience at Home Services of America, from my experience in being a part of a large brokerage, that it is extremely challenging with to have profitability with the commission splits that productive agents demand, with the cap models on broker revenue. By the way, the brokerage that I ran did not have caps. We were, splits from 50 to 90%, and they were capped there. But we were always getting revenue, and no matter how much production, they had to have an agent that's making $1 million. We were still making revenue on that. And I was a big proponent of that. So that landscape has completely changed. So it's challenging. But where the opportunity lies, and this is why I own another company that's in that space, because I see it as such a need, an opportunity, is for the broker owners to diversify their income and to multiply the revenue that is coming in on an individual transaction by being a part of the affiliated services.
Right.
There's no reason why, just like you, can't have a mortgage operation and can't have a title operation, and depending upon regulations in different states. But, as you grow, there's no reason why you can't have a property insurance division and why you can't have property management going. Those additional revenue streams are literally the ones where you see some mediocre productive brokerages that have cap models still around and thriving. It's because they figured out a way to get the multiplication factor on the transaction. It doesn't, by the way, consumers have been told that, oh, that's not good. That just means they're just trying to dip into our pockets. No, the truth is most consumers are already paying for these services. We now get to control the quality of the service that's delivered by being a part of the ownership. Yes, there's a revenue, but a worker's worth their wage. And
Right.
Owner is you're the controller of the steering of that transaction. Why not be able to deliver a 5-star level service in all the different verticals, thereby giving the customer a better experience? There was a company that, when I was in my tenure, there was a big company on the East Coast that had more than 17 different affiliated services inside their brokerage. Why? Because they saw Dusty, they had such a giant, large property management division, like so many doors, that they were buying the air conditioning units on containers, because this is how many we need in a given year, considering we have 7,000 doors that we manage.
They were buying in bulk.
crazy verticals that they saw that they can start to manage. But that's,
Right.
obviously that's a massive scale considering what I'm talking about with a brokerage. But, the true simple multipliers of brokerage, mortgage, title, insurance, et cetera, are a big opportunity for you.
So ancillary services.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that also, what I like about it also is the buck stops with someone that you can have a face-to-face conversation with if there's ever a problem, which I think is another value.
Owning the company cures, being a part of those services. I call it affiliated services because that's what the CFPB calls it. They affiliated service or affiliate arrangements, whatever they're calling that disclosure. But the and you can cut that. You don't have to have that as part of the answer. But what I was going to say is that you being a part of the affiliated services allows you to cure the ostrich syndrome that you see in affiliated services. Where's my loan officer? Where's my title officer? When the S hits the fan, I can't find them, or they made a mistake and they're hiding as a result instead of owning it. You get to
have the difficult conversations. One, two-part question. Why do agents change brokerages so much? And two, what are some things that, that you think brokers could do better in regards to retention?
That's a great question, Dusty. I have a great longtime friend who is in the real estate recruiting space, who is a psychologist.
Nice.
And he is literally a doctor, a PhD. And Dr. David Mashburn, he's retired now, but you can look him up. And he has this principle that he taught me back in 2008 when I met him. And we contracted their services to help us create a profile of the successful agents inside of our company, and thereby use that profile from a personality standpoint to attract the right fits to our company. And we'd basically say, take 10 minutes to take this assessment to see whether or not you're a fit, which is a great way to get people to step in and have a conversation or start a conversation. But in that journey, I learned from Dr. Mashburn that the psychology of anybody that's looking to make a move, the breakage point is called dislodging factors. And why does somebody get to that dislodging factor of where they start going on to job boards when they're at their current, job, and they're getting paid to do their current job at XYZ company, not even talking about real estate agents, but why is it that they're there, they start looking? Well, there's a multitude of reasons. You can ask in our space, well, is it because of a bad transaction, or because the manager responded poorly, or because an agent in their office was totally unethical and the broker manager didn't do anything about it, or because that person keeps harassing them and they're like, forget it, I'm just going to go someplace else? The answer is yes. They're all reasons why agents move. And I've recruited a lot of agents in my career in real estate. And I can tell you there's no one common answer. People move for different reasons, but they all have a dislodging factor. And your opportunity as a broker owner is to catch them at that dislodging point, or to help them discover their dislodging points in your recruiting interview. And it's a catch, right? It's very rare that you find people that are right when they're ready to move, they call you, because they might not. I mean, I hope you tell your story and everybody in your marketplace knows this is an amazing option should you need to make a change. But the truth is, some people go, well, I'm not really interested in making a change because they're happy where they're at. But then after they meet with you one time, they now aren't as happy. Why? Because you showed them some dislodging factors that might be an opportunity to make a move.
I think that's an ideal way for someone to move. It seems like a lot of them, though, they move hastily, though, for other reasons.
Yeah.
But that's probably just personal to them, if I had to guess. But
yeah, but consider you and your journey, your career. You've not made many moves.
No, I've been in the same place 9 years.
Yeah. And so it's hard for you to relate to that personality style, because that's what it is, that is really tolerant of change. I moved 5 different times before I was in leadership, and it was easy. It really is easy to go brand, and my CRM's the same because it's mine. My business card logos, those kinds of things change. But other than that, same customer base, same lead generation systems, I can port, no problem. I mean, it used to be harder because you would physically move from this office to that, but with so many people working from home, it's easy.
Right.
And that's just it. You know, when you think about people, you might say they move hastily, but they might go, not really, I just got bored.
Mm-hmm.
So from a value standpoint, what can the broker do? I'm a huge proponent of basics, coaching, training, and accountability. And when a broker can, in a sales organization, can lean into, even in a broker, not in a team, even in a brokerage, when they can lean into those things, and you consider how productive agents like to hang out with productive agents. All right, so be the facilitator of bringing those guys and gals together. It makes your company more sticky because nobody wants to leave their friends. It's really hard to.
So that actually leads really well into my last question. So we've been leading a team with a lot of accountability. So, you know, what would the cadence in your mind be of accountability when they're running their own business? I imagine there's less. I envision there's less. But how do you foresee that going in regards to accountability?
So I am a 4 disciplines of execution student, lover of the sales management philosophy from that book and from that company. And the advocacy for accountability cadence in our business in a sales organization is weekly. And the primary reason why you don't want it to go longer than that is for a term that comes from the aeronautical space called practical drift. Practical drift shows up in, you know, your air traffic control says be at heading 016, and you've been at 017 for the past half hour, you're way off course.
Right.
Or in very large organizations, you see practical drift commonly with like safety initiatives. The organization goes, January 1, we're going to have preventative measures for safety because we don't want people to get hurt. Because when people get hurt, we lose manpower, we lose productivity. And the next thing you know is a month later, everybody's forgotten about the safety measure because it was something we mentioned January 1. Well, in sales business, if you're waiting 90 days, a month to do your accountability, you don't have an opportunity to correct where you might be off course. And you don't have an opportunity to forget what you committed to. Oh, crap, I committed to that last month. I totally didn't get to it. If you're doing it weekly, your rhythm, your cadence on the lead measures is a lot more likely to stay consistent and true. And your follow through on projects and initiatives are more likely to see through if you do it weekly. But I coach a large brokerage, and I just got them to break into pods based on production, based on tenure, based on things that they like. There's several team leaders in this brokerage, and the team leaders are getting together. Even though they're competitors, they're getting together and having accountability. And I'm telling you, when they're getting together, there's almost this like, I'm not going to show up as an oafer in front of my colleagues next week, so I'm going to do it. Well, if you didn't have that accountability, well, with your peers, with your ego in check, what would your production look like? Practical drift. It's easy to slide off.
100%. Andy, such good content. Thank you so much